couple of things. Number one will be the issue of the cement armada that you brought forward. A lot of people said the cement armada, no, not a lot of people. What we know from history was a beehive of bureaucratic incompetence, and he was in the arms of affairs. And it was under him it happened. That case was so bad that there were many case laws that came out as a result of the cement armada. We had court cases up till the 80s when that happened. But he tried as much as possible to remove himself out of it. And if he keeps insisting that there was no corruption under him, how about the 1974 census? That a lot of people made jokes about because of the lack of integrity of that census and how skewed that census was. He also tried to exonerate himself from the indigenization decree, which a lot of people say, no, hang on a minute. There is something in there. And the last part of it was even the emergence, how he became leader. The story he told there are many accounts. If you read the likes of Maxwell, if you read the likes of John Centaure's account, one of the most vivid and balanced account of the 60s, it's not the account he told there. That's why a lot of people are taken aback. In fact, while the interview was going on, somebody rang me up and did say they have a contrary account that they're going to release, even contrary recordings that they have. What would you say about, those times where he just tried to meander out of it? You asked a very critical question. You asked him, do you think we're healing now? But he just meandered through that question.
Well, don't forget that, although to be honest, I found him to be an extraordinarily lucid man at the age of, he's just about to turn 91 in a few months in October. He was incredibly lucid for somebody that old. But you've also got to remember that he is somebody who's that old. He's heading on to being 91 years old. And that means that not only does he have foggy moments, possibly in his memory, although there was no evidence of that, but there can also be, a measure of sort of selective synchronization, let me put it that way. You see what I mean? Where people pick things that, they think leave them in a much better light. He's also a human being. We tend to see things from a subjective perspective. And even though he was head of state, his argument before we started the interview is that he still has a limited sense of what is actually going on. He gets information, he acts on it, he gives instructions, it is carried out, it comes back to him. Some people say it was carried out, others say it wasn't carried out. So, I'm not putting up a defense for him, but in many ways, I can see why his version of events might differ from those of other people.
Brilliant interview.
All right, Charles.
Because Babangida stated clearly that the coup wasn't an Igbo coup. The Igbo people have suffered gravely because of that coup. A coup that was plotted to bring Awolowo out of prison and make him president of Nigeria. The actors had written their books, and that was their common program. And the coup didn't succeed. And the Igbos have been put to the wall because of it. I felt that with Babangida's clear statement that it wasn't an Igbo coup, and he named Yorubas and Northerners that were part of that coup, it was a big relief to me, and I challenged Gowon to write his own book so Nigerians will read. So I was therefore disappointed that yesterday he granted an interview which showed the sign of dementia on his part. At 91, he appeared to have forgotten the things that happened. But some of us who worked with Ojukwu and interviewed him and got the records of what happened at that time disagree with all the things he said. One is that it was a big lie for him to say that the war was not against the Igbo people of Nigeria. What can be further from the truth? They said he was in Abeokuta. He wasn't in Abeokuta, and he heard about the insurrection in Abeokuta, and he was somewhere, and suddenly he saw how it ended. It snowballed into assassination of Agui Ironsi. that he wasn't part of the coup. He didn't know anything about it, but he later emerged as head of state after the coup, counter coup was organized. That is somebody telling lies. And for him to say that the Igbos, the war was not against the Igbo people, I thought by now he should be apologizing to the Igbo people for the role he played in that civil war. Instead of coming here to challenge our sensibilities, that I think not challenging, it's insulting our sensibilities, that the war was not against the Igbos. Who were the victims of the war? The counter coup was a cleansing of the Igbo officers in the Nigerian army. Igbo officers, you know, he couldn't say those who were killed from his own Plateau state or part of Nigeria in the counter coup. He couldn't say that. So it was a reprisal coup against the Igbos, and the Igbos were not only killed as military officers, their businesses were destroyed across Nigeria. And the Aburi Accord, which he has misrepresented in his interview, is the greatest travesty. One was that I worked with Ojukwu for 5 years, and I asked him questions about these things, and including Aburi Accord. He told me that at Aburi, they all agreed to confederation. Confederation means that the regions will become confederate states, and every region will continue to develop at its own pace. That is the sense of the meaning of confederation. And when they agreed on all this, that General Ankara carried himself, General Ankara and Gowon and Ojukwu were at the back of the same car when they were being taken to the airport. And that Ankara took Gowon's hand and Ojukwu's hand, put them together, and said that they should go and implement the agreements of this Aburi, you know. And he told Gowon right there, Ojukwu said he told Gowon that if Gowon gets home and announces the agreements reached here, that he will be the first person to propose Gowon as the head of state of Nigeria. And when they all left, they came back to Nigeria. Days went by, Gowon didn't announce anything. He didn't address the nation on what they agreed in Aburi. In Gowon's account yesterday, I was shocked to hear him say that when he returned, he had malaria. And because he had fever, he delayed his announcing the agreements reached in Aburi. So at his age, he didn't need to start lying. When he came back, his advisors told him to renege on all the things agreed in Aburi. So it was Gowon who plunged the country into that civil war. It was because he refused to announce the agreements reached in Aburi. Ojukwu waited for him, and things were not getting better. And Ojukwu now, I don't even think that he made a formal broadcast. He leaked the agreements reached in Aburi, and he was still waiting on Gowon to do the needful. Gowon now said that if Ojukwu had not said the things agreed in Aburi, that there wouldn't be anyone, that he would have said the same thing by himself, but if not for malaria that he was suffering from. So I think he has not done what he should be doing at this late stage of his life. It is time for him to begin to speak the truth, to heal the wounds of that war. Everybody has moved on. The war is 55 years today that it ended. But to come back at 91 years of age and tell these obvious lies means that he is not thinking about how to live Nigeria in peace. He said he fought for Nigeria to be one. That's what he said. That the reason for fighting the civil war was to keep Nigeria as one. Is Nigeria one today? Nigeria is not one today. The president was in Benue yesterday, where people of his own zone are being slaughtered on a daily basis in the past years. So what has he done to make Nigeria a better country? So I think that I still challenge him again to write his own truthful account of what happened in Nigeria under his watch, so that truth is an open word, conscience is an open word, only the truth will heal it. So he should stop running around let him come out boldly and say sorry to the Igbo people of Nigeria. Because remember, the coup brought out to Awolowo from prison. And instead of using Awolowo to unite Nigeria, he brought him and made him Federal Commissioner for Finance under his government. And they started driving economic policies that were aimed at exterminating the Igbos in Nigeria. So he was the person who laid the foundation for all these problems we're having. And he was the one who brought the Southeast, the Igbos and the Yorubas, at crossroads. Mistrust came in because Awolowo was released by Ojukwu after when the problem of Biafra was declared. So in trying to gather people, he now brought Gowon. Instead of uniting the country, he made him Federal Commissioner for Finance. He knows the purpose for that. And we have paid dearly for it. We don't want to be insulted more because doing these things will aggravate our wound. We want to bury the wounds from the past. So let him stop speaking. If he doesn't want to say the truth, let him go and write his own book so that when he's no more, his book will be circulated and will be judged. Ojukwu is not alive to join issue with him. When Ojukwu was alive, he was talking. Gowon refused to talk. And now that he's talking, it's very unfortunate. T.Y. Danjuma is still alive. He was the one that led the arrest of Gowon, and his unfortunate, arrest Aburi Accord, and his unfortunate assassination. So I don't know what T.Y. will be thinking after hearing Gowon that he wasn't part of the coup. That he didn't know anything about what happened in Nigeria and suddenly saw himself as head of state of Nigeria. How can somebody say this type of thing? So what is he trying to say?
You talked about, General Gowon, about the fact that a lot of the people who were killed, those military officers, were from the north. Did that make General Aburi Acord's position from the very beginning almost untenable as someone from the south?
I did not know what was happening in Nigeria before that, because I was right in the UK on the coast. But I think some of the stories that you hear, there was trouble, or that is part of the reaction. But probably I'll come to that, or riot, yes.
I mean, because the reason I asked that is that General Aburi Accord was assassinated literally 6 months after that first, because, and obviously there would have been brewing resentment towards him, because in a sense he personified to the people from the other side what they felt had been inflicted upon them.
Yes, I think honestly that could be the part of the reason, but the feeling I know later, because one of the feeling was that from the other side was being was still considering finishing the unfinished symphony.
So you were not aware of the fact that there was going to be a coup, a counter coup in July 1966?
No, not at all, until that very night.
Right.
That very night, early morning, when I was woken up to say something had happened in Abeokuta, and before you know it, I think the news has spread in the whole world. And I was on telephone trying to find out that I know that General was in Ibadan for meeting with all the traditional rulers, and just to warn him that God is this person and should do it. He should be very careful. That of course
it was too late.
Too late. By the time I got in the government house telephone, unfortunately, already something had happened. But the instruction that I gave the senior officer in charge at that time was to make sure that if he was kept safe and taken safe somewhere, until God was able to sort out the insurrection that had already started and what had to prepare.
Right. So he was then assassinated.
Unfortunately,
How did you become aware that you've been chosen to become the next head of state, to replace him, essentially?
well, it is from after the effort of the chief of staff's headquarters are going to be, I think, attempt to try to to bring law and order in the battalion. And of course, unfortunately, the troops that he sent, certainly decimated. And then, of course, it has to come to me. Us then, like the acting chief of the chief of staff, to go to cages to try and see if I can sort out the problem. And of course, I think at that time, that is where a lot of big crisis for a number of days. There was no government, and of the civil servants, you are worried because of system of government that was done at that time. So there was all sort of efforts, either from them, either for her to go and put things in the right in occasion. And of course, but one day, please, Father, they normally ask their former African general, but only at that time, I was German party chief of. So that probably helped. They listen to me, and if I I said, we just got to make sure that things, I took right, and we did. So with civil servants, certainly came, they wanted to make contact with the most senior officer, military officer, to give them the instruction. Since the old system is still like military, that was in control. But I didn't tell you the story how I was from the contact between the civil servants, and also some of the foreign were British and American ambassadors or high commissioned. You had to come and see before come and see to wish to find out who who is the leader of the insurrection, but at the time, in order to make sure that at least things start going on. And so they came, and they saw me, and of course there was discussion there familiarity, to what is happening, and the head of state. I didn't want it. I want to remain the secretary, to remain either as minister or get into GRC or minister of in order to ensure that we restore the discipline and loyalty of the body of the army, in support of tradition,
But they offered it to you.
But in the end, of course, has offered it to the junior officer, said they want to, and any of them wanted to, the gender, our the less was to look after the population, to restore loyalty, discipline, and loyalty for the. But however, in the end, the most of the young officers, they say that I'm the only one that they would accept. That is irrespective from any or from any of the group in the army. So although I was not in the most senior, there were senior people now who need to pay the sugar, and others. But unfortunately, they said they did not want anybody but for me to give them the leadership. And so that was how the leadership came to me.
And of course, subsequent to that January 66 coup, the July 66 coup, and you subsequently becoming head of state, there were attacks on people from the southeast in the northern region, and even in parts of the western region as well. The people in the southeast call it a pogrom. What was your assessment of what happened, and what did you try to do to stop those case people from the southeast?
My goodness, it was something that we did not expect. That was more of reaction of what either happened in area. Now, if you remember before Iran's did you remember that the regions are going to be disbanded and all going to be provincial when you became a state, that is going to become provinces. And of course, there was a lot of reaction, fear and reaction from all the regions, well, of course, except this Midwest probably touch and do, because it is already quiet. Normal that they have their own vision, but there was reaction in the north and the west, against that unitary system of government, which it is very people, I think, because they were afraid of being overwhelmed by the people from the east. There was that fear, because that was why the leadership in the northern Palestine leadership, the whiter, and the military leadership also were wiped out at the same time. And the action, really, that is, really created, some of the thing that happened. It is not the military that that did it. The military one that Trump did was the revenge, coup, whereby all the officers that took part in the coup were, of course, taken in, and but I do not know what they did to them, but at least those of them that were able to be taken from the various prisons, in the country. Yes, I think they were unfortunately penalty. But some of them that lived, for example, in Zion, later on, tried to fight. And unfortunately, he was killed in operation. Towards the Indian people, Banjo, was taken, I think, somewhere in this and in others. So really, a lot of ways, thing that happened, it was more or less the reaction of what happened in January, and some of the.
And you couldn't stop.
No, of course, I had to stop it, my goodness. I remember during that time, during that crisis, yes, what one has to do in whatever way one could to get the leadership authorities in those areas to stop gun bust, nonsense. And I spoke to some of the chiefs, some of the political leaders that were there, people that at least they can do something to douse the situation. And with Bauchi, I remember certainly that the Emir of Bauchi that I had to speak to has my name. So he was my namesake. His name was, I could be with certain Bauchi. I spoke to them, and to do whatever we can, and also the soldiers, to make sure that the people were protected. And it is not from the act of the military, but the reaction of the population, because of what's happened to their leadership, when you come to think of it.
But then, of course, the people in the southeast felt that that was the clearest indication to them that they were no longer wanted in the union that was Nigeria. They then broke away. And of course, after that came the horror of the Civil War, because you went out to bring them back, to forcibly bring them back. That Civil War happened under your watch. As you look back at that period with the benefit of hindsight, could that conflict that claimed millions of lives have been prevented?
Yes, I think I have said that if the East does not break up from Nigeria, yes, that was what I kept on saying. Why people say that they want to say, no, I have a responsibility, to keep Nigeria, Nigeria. And as far as I'm concerned, that is my duty, and I won't. But if the situation gets to this stage, when I have to choose between allowing the breakup, or happy to stop it physically. I know where my responsibility is because of my loyalty, love and loyalty to the country.
Indeed. And many, but there were attempts. Sorry, go ahead.
So let me just say,
Sure.
and the question of the millions of people that we say between, right from the beginning, I made sure that it is not a war against the Igbos as such, but it is in order to stop the breaking up of Nigeria. Right? Yes, and so what I did, I get a code of conduct. How the operations was to go, etc. And we are not fighting the people. Make sure that we protect them, protect the women, and children, and you will only take up arms against those who take up arms against you. And honestly, and with the instruction that anything that was done against the population that is not correct would be dealt with, and it is that was done, and it is not millions of people. Now, we tried to send leaflets people to be sure that honestly it is not fight against them, but we had to stop the government leading the union what we have. And even they should not for me to talk that, of course, when the names that I was called at that time, they also were flawed. the vandal, the whatever it is, there was no name, but I was.
It was the propaganda of the war.
Okay, accepted. We used to say, please don't move, don't run away. But of course, they used to tell their people they should run away from those vandals, from those horrible leadership that is going to treat them. And that is how a lot of people lost their lives. And then when we try to say the question of feeding, feeding the people, for example, we used to allow aid to come, but we say let it come to Nigeria and let it be inspected by international people, so that there is no question of weapon the smart might do. And but the other side refuses. So what can you do? We also arrange for the food to be able to be taken in by road and etc. Of course, the other side will say no, because of other work, Nigeria is going to poison the food. Whether we are afraid of weapons being in there, but of Nigeria will be poisoning the food, and so they will say no to and in the end, really a lot of people, it is not from any people killed by gunshots, right? But all the palm trees that I saw when I went to that part of the country, and I saw all those black spots on trees, palm trees, etc. And I was wondering what sort of disease is this on those trees? And someone said, no, those are bullet marks. So most of the bullets were more on the on those trees,
Not on people.
not on people.
But I mean, that was obviously when the war had started and advanced. Prior to the start of the war, many analysts have suggested that if the Aburi Accord had been implemented, the tragedy of the Civil War might have been averted, and they blame you for reneging on that Aburi Accord. Is that how you see it? Did your government renege on the Aburi Accord?
Well, I think that is the interpretation that we not know whether that accord was, the actual final result written from it was not to be done until after we got home.
But you agreed to the accord when you were in Gath.
No, this is the accord. It is not a question of agreement in accord. This, it is when we come back home, and I made it. I made a statement. When you come back home, and I make a statement that you about Aburi.
Right. Because that's why it was called an accord. Yes. An accord means that you had agreed.
No, accord. But then it has to be done in Nigeria before Friday.
So you needed to come home and discuss it.
Unfortunately, when the first people didn't want to believe it, I was having a serious attack of either fever or whatever it is, and I could not make any decision.
At Aburi.
At home, right. when we arrived in home. And Tojuku was one who then, when he came, he went and made made the statement. He made the statement about the Aburi Accord. And the governor of the Midlands, Duke Eje, then rang me at that very early hours of the day to tell me, he said, have you heard? So I said, heard, and what Oji God said, So I said, no. I haven't had anything that that happened, but that is the reason why I could not make from this statement, which would have then clearly say exactly what what we agree with the and he told me that, oh, we said you are going to move a part of it, that the military is going to be, etc., going to be controlling the people now from each, from each opposition, for example. And he was what I said today, is that actually, honestly, is that what me I did too? But he said, yo. So I said, well, this year I do not know what that is. So that was the time, and later on, had to ask the other governors what they think, and they were able to say, well, that is not quite what it is. So we had to organize a meeting of all the governors, and he was invited to attend so that we can deal with the Aburi Accord. And we met at Naifo in Benin. And he did not turn up. And of course, all the secretaries to the government, all the were there, all the governors were there. He was invited, but of course he said because of security reason he cannot come. So he didn't come or send anybody. And we discussed that Aburi discussion. And for example, the permanent, the secretary to the government, the West, did ask, came and appealed to me, as a Christian, please, if we can make sure that that accord, what we agreed is in the true spirit of Aburi. And I told him, as a Christian, I can assure you that that is the way, it is going to be. And we had that meeting. In the end, we invited him to come. He did not come. So, and when we ended the meeting, of course, the spirit of Aburi was totally, as it was sort of, I do not know what accord he was reading, because he came to the meeting with prepared papers, of things that he wanted. And of course, we discuss them one by one, agree on some, disagree on some. Like, for example, to give you one of the major issues, although we say that the military would be zoned, but the control, and then he wanted, those zones to be commanded by the governor. Say, you have a military zone in the north, will be commanded by the governor of the ministry. In the east, will be commanded by him, and military in the west, by this thing. And of course, we did not agree with that one. And certainly, it was not one of those agreed. But none of us went there, with any senior official, secretary to the government, or senior, etc. We did not. We just went there, as far as we are concerned, to be able to meet as officers now and then, to agree to be able to get back home and resolve our problem at home. That was, my understanding, but that is not his understanding. And so when we went to NIFO and discussed this, the spirit of Aburi was certainly included. The only thing that I added was that no region, will can succeed.
Right.
Can from the
So that there was a clear, from your point of view,
Absolutely.
misunderstanding.
Absolutely.
The war, of course, ended in 1970, and you came up with that no victor, no vanquished declaration, which was seen by many people, both at home and abroad, as a extraordinary, magnanimous gesture of post-war reconciliation, unprecedented in many ways. Would you say that 55 years later, Nigeria has healed from the wounds inflicted by that terrible war, and that no victor, no vanquished declaration of yours was fully adopted in this country?
Well, at least we've survived how many years now? We survived how many years?
To be 65 this year.
Well, we've survived 65 years. Since the war, let us say.
Yes, 55 years since the war.
Since the war. At least, if there is anything, my whole idea is that when all this thing is done, at least we can be able to come back, and rebuild the country and make the great efforts that have been done. Yes, we've gone through, through dangerous time whereby as though we're going to break up, etc. But we've now come back. And we are now improving at every stage.
But you do know that survival is not the same as thriving.
Oh, thriving! Isn't Nigeria thriving today? Come along, let us have it. Have we not gone beyond? What we were 55 years ago? And we still trying to get the perfection. Certainly, I did not mean that things will be absolutely perfect the way they want, or anybody wants. But at least we will survive as a country, improving at every stage.
Right.
To where we are. And if we look at things the way things are going today, most of the people that were affected by the war today, and great progress and happening in the East, in all the states in the East. I certainly did not try to stop development and improving the situation as the time goes along.
After the Nigerian Civil War, your administration enjoyed enormous financial liquidity because of the oil boom of that period. Nigerians believed that money was not necessarily properly utilized for the development of this country. I wonder what your response is to that. Could you perhaps have applied those resources better?
Well, first of all, we've got to make sure that we protect, that sources of that wealth, and to make sure that it is not destroyed. So we really remove the attack from the other side, who are doing a lot of the destruction, whether it is nature bridge or whatever, or various areas, so that the federal side did not get to them. We made sure that those were protected, because I know that we are going to need those resources for the reconstruction and redevelopment, and the development of the country. And that is what we did. We thank God that soon after that we were able to have sufficient resources to carry on the the 3 or the 4 R's. Well, we say the 3 R's in the country, and making sure that
that's reconstruction, rehabilitation,
and reintegration.
Right.
Reintegration.
Yeah.
So there were 4, but we just use the 3. And in fact, we were able to achieve, that to restore the damaged school, hospitals, etc., in the affected areas. That is the whole of the east, and the other areas like in the Midwest that were a lot of destruction, and also part of the north that we had a few bomb attacks, from the other side. So really, yes, that resources was used, for the development of the country.
Right. I think a lot of people would probably agree with you that there was considerable development, certainly in the Southeast after the Civil War, and other places across the country. But there are those who say that oil boom which Nigeria enjoyed not only propelled a measure of economic development, but it also fueled a huge amount of corruption, which has continued to deepen since that time. They accuse you of failing to tackle the scourge of corruption and suggest that if you had, perhaps the problem of officially sanctioned theft wouldn't be as bad as it is today. What's your response to that?
Well, I just want people to tell me those areas of corruption that was not dealt with during our time, or, well, at least let them start with me to say that corruption. It was me.
Well, let me mention 2 things, and not aimed at you directly, but aimed at the government generally. There was that cement armada in 1975, a result of signing contracts with international suppliers, delivery of millions of tons of cement in 1 year, and it had the capacity to take Lagos Port, just had the capacity to take just 1 million tons. And then there was the other one, the indigenization decree of 1972, which allowed Nigerians to take over or share in the ownership of the big international companies in this country. People criticized that, saying that it provided a windfall, that indigenization decree, for just a few highly connected Nigerians. So those are 2 examples there.
Now, let me say this: the cement armada that you talked about, that was came in just before, actually before my overthrow. Now, at the end of the war, part of our effort in order to reconstruction, of the country was to make sure that we were able to, do this, throughout, the country. So if you have the civil servants, wanting cement, you want them, for the military, etc. And of course, well, various groups say they wanted that one. And we wanted to get those cement, but we went to America, we went to Britain, and we could not get anything. We went to Europe, to Turkey, to Bulgaria, etc., to try and get some of this thing. And honestly, we did not get any. There was, shortage, of this supply. At that time, Gaddafi had already bought all the cement that he wanted for the development of his own country. And honestly, we did not. But there was a glut of shipping at that time in the world. Now, go and find that out. There was a glut of shipping. And of course, we could not get the amount of spent, even the million that people say only that the port can take. None of
so that was a false allegation.
No, it was absolutely false.
Right.
But there was certainly a glut of shipping, and of course there were people that said they will get cement for you, etc. And with the shipping glut that we have, yes, they cannot. We could not get it. But they would say that they have bought those cement to the country, and if they brought that amount of cement, and they dump it, by our port, how many ships would be able to?
Well, let me move on from that.
So let me just say that. So there was certainly collusion between some of these shipping people. Some might be some officials.
Right.
And
what about the indigenization decree? I don't mean to interrupt you.
I only during my time only dealt with most of the commercial areas, etc., the Lebanese shops, etc. That was what I did. We were very careful, dealing with the oil companies or the big companies, because I wanted to make sure that at least all parts of the country are able to benefit from it. One of those things was done by the government that succeeded me. Obasanjo's government,
right.
not me.
Right. Okay. That is a fair assessment, because we know that a lot of the implementation of the indigenization decree happened subsequent to your government.
Yes.
You had promised Nigerians that there would be a return to civil rule in 1975, and then you postponed that date indefinitely. Why did you do that?
No. The main reason I can tell you is that when we gave the promise that this is going to happen, when some of my all the commissioners left, they started this political infighting, among themselves. And it was honestly reminiscent to the January the 15th.
Right, so it wasn't just you trying to hold on to power.
No, that is not, because I promised that this is, I was going to restore power by 76. But because of this attitude, honestly, I was genuinely, afraid that it is going to get us back to, the period that brought,
So you thought the best way to deal with it would be to postpone
it, and then we had a very big economic development plan, and even before then. When they said there was nothing happening in Nigeria, was it not the time that we were having the roads? We started building economic roads from Sokoto, Ilela to Badagry, from Maiduguri to Calabar, and to all the major ports in Nigeria. Is it not the time that, in fact, we have Volkswagen, Peugeot, Steyr, Leyland, and Mercedes were ready to come to Nigeria to invest in Nigeria? Was it not the time that we had, investment that was coming to Nigeria after the Civil War, when they saw, the way we were going? And things we're going, well, we are choosing, the investors that could invest. And not only to invest, their money, but the know-how, the technology, etc., so that Nigeria can move beyond what it is. Or you can, all right, let's just say, what they are trying to do today in Nigeria.
Nevertheless, General Gowon, the decision to postpone that return to civil rule led to your overthrow. Some would make that argument. And a date that you probably won't forget, which is the 29th of July, 1975, you were overthrown in a coup whilst you were attending an OAU summit in Kampala in Uganda. How do you recall what happened and how did you react to it?
No, I can assure you, the interesting thing was that the reason why they said I was overthrown was that the government, that I went to Kampala to try and do exactly what the government was said. Nigeria has come of age and it can. No country can tell them what to do, etc. Now I went to Kampala. I encouraged the conference in Kampala after being chairman of the OAU in 73, so that we can decide on trying to help all the African countries that are still under colonial rule to become independent. And of course, the government that saw me off, this is what they were claiming they want to do. And they sort of condemn all those countries. And even, for example, refusing Kissinger to come to Nigeria, which I have organized so that he can meet me in August, about middle of August, to discuss American attitude towards African countries as a whole. So I think that one that I was overthrown because of that. Honestly, it did not worry me. The list. This is what they had wanted to do. I knew about the plan. I was told that this is going to happen. Is going to happen by a special group that they say belong to me. And I didn't bother to find out, who they were.
Right.
I was only told two names who are very close to me and from my own particular.
And was Murtala Mohammed one of them?
No. Murtala Mohammed, I can assure you, if you want me to tell you my story, me and Murtala Mohammed, since school. I was a senior person in Barewa when he joined the school.
But he led your overthrow.
He could lead my overthrow, but I was told it is our boys.
Right.
Our boys. And honestly, it didn't bother me. I did not know who they were, fully who they were, until Bangida's book. That really showed who they were.
Right.
And,
but there was a report after that coup that implicated you in the coup that overthrew and killed Murtala Mohammed. You were declared wanted, you were stripped of your rank, your pension was stopped, and the allegation was that you met Lieutenant Colonel Dimka, who was the mastermind of that coup in London. Was that allegation true?
Well, he came with other people other people. He came with them.
So he met you in London?
Well, he met us, me, my family, and, these people that wanted to come and see me. I did not know that he was even in the UK until when he came to see me.
So what did he say to you when he came to see you?
Well,
did he
I
say,
told him,
I'm planning to have a coup?
Do you think that such a thing, could be discussed, with me? Or would you believe that such a thing could be discussed with me? If anything was said, I said a moment ago, I told you that what took me to Kampala is what the government was trying to do, to say that they've come of age, and they've come of age, and nobody can tell them what to do, and they even jettison, or refuse, what's his name, to come to visit.
You mean Henry Kissinger?
Pardon?
No, you were saying, what's his name? I'm wondering, were you talking about Henry Kissinger?
Kissinger.
Right,
yes,
who was the Secretary of State
of the
United States
and if you remember, and he's also head of the security.
Yeah.
And my goodness me, if you do that before, you can be in trouble.
Right.
But however, let us say this. Yes, he came along with these people that who are one, of them was from close to me. He's like a brother. He came along with them. In fact, he asked them if they could take him back to his hotel or whatever it is, and but they said no. They've got to come and see me. And so they cannot, they cannot take him, but he can come along with him.
So he sort of tagged along.
So along with them,
right.
And we saw, and he did mention that that government is going communist, and so I said, but that government is doing exactly the sort of thing. I went to Uganda, Kampala, to do. So, but he was complaining about, the government being.
So he was complaining generally, but he wasn't very specific about what he was going to do about his complaints.
Not what I'm going to do. I have nothing to discuss. I was warning him, the way he was saying it, talking about communism, etc., etc.
Right.
I was worried. I said, but that is the sort of thing that you are complaining about, senior officers doing things without consulting them. I said, is that not the sort of thing that all of you were doing to me before? So I said, no, I want him. I said, talking about communism, what do you know? Senior officers have to take decisions that, and it is for you people, for you younger ones to listen to them, because they are doing it on your behalf and on behalf of the whole country. I was myself, worried about that statement, and I was wondering who authorized him to leave the country to a foreign country and to UK. And the way he was speaking, honestly, I suspected that he has some contact with some some intelligence officers who are fanning this question of
a coup. In any case,
not of a coup.
Right.
Of communism,
right.
or some people that are trying to make sure that yes, yeah, because of our old relationship with the...
Right. Well, as I'm sure you know, he subsequently returned to Nigeria and carried out a coup
Yes.
against Murtala Muhammad, in which Murtala Muhammad was assassinated, and he himself, Dimka, was subsequently caught and executed.
Yes.
You, at the time, as I mentioned, they had mentioned your name along with that, but in the end, you were pardoned by President Shagari and your military rank...
I was not pardoned by Shagari.
Right.
Okay. Yes, when Shagari wanted to, was involved in government, I think, etc. They wanted from Ojukwu, Ojukwu's in a case to be done. So they wanted to pardon Ojukwu,
right.
and of course, they said they wanted to pardon me, and I sort of say, pardon who? Me? My goodness gracious me!
Yeah.
To me to be pardoned, I will not accept pardon, because I know I have got nothing to do with that coup, but also even trying to stop it. And for that reason, I said, I'm not going to accept pardon. But if you want to pardon Ojukwu, yes, it will be the continuation of the reconciliation that
right.
We had.
Nevertheless,
well, let me finish this one. It is important.
Go ahead.
And I sort of said, no, I'm not going to. If anybody is to ask for forgiveness, it is they are the one to ask me for that, and so I'm not going to accept pardon. And in the end, President Shagari had to accept that. And of course, well, he was my Minister of Finance, and for that reason, at least he knows what am I, and he knows.
And he respected you.
Yeah, so they had to find a word. So I said, pardon, I will not accept, because in Nigeria, and if you say pardon, whatever it is, even Queen's pardon will not be.
Nevertheless, he
in the end accepted this thing. But to say that these officers, that it is me who either promoted them, etc., did that. Yes, it is their time. They acted the way they want to feel. They are strong. They're powerful. That is not the way I use my power.
Right.
That is not the way I use my power.
Well, your military... I wonder if, given all that, I mean, you came back to Nigeria, you're a very well-respected elder statesman in this country. I wonder if you've had any desire since you left office to rule or govern Nigeria again, as we've seen the likes of Olusegun Obasanjo, Muhammadu Buhari, who were former military heads of states, do in this country. Did you ever have that desire?
I never had, except I was almost forced into it by Babangida's the A4 system. When
the option A4.
Yes, option A4, and when they selected Abiola for SDP, and I was selected for
the NRC.
NRC. Now, and there was pressure from me, from or from whichever source, and generally from the north, etc., that I should be the candidate. And honestly, I reluctantly, my wife, of course, didn't want it at all, didn't want to hear about it at all. I reluctantly went along. But but the only stage that I reached was the first level, the ward level.
Right.
The ward level. It didn't go even to the local government, and before you go to the regional. And,
Right.
yes, but honestly, no. That is not. I was only interested in making sure that whatever contribution I can make in advising various leadership, and to make sure that we continue to make Nigeria
Right.
a reality.
And a big part of that contribution that you made was, I think, epitomized in the slogan that was used during the war, which is to keep Nigeria one is a task that must be done. That kind of sums up what you were trying to do. Is Nigeria one today?
Well, is it? Are we still not Nigeria?
I mean, in the real sense of a united country, united in a vision.
Tell me which country is that absolutely united? Tell me, what it is that you do not have the different, viewpoints, etc.
Yeah,
Even
but what would you
today.
advise? I mean, let's assume that what you're saying is correct. What would you advise is the best way to deepen Nigerian unity going forward?
Well, it is up to the people. As far as I'm concerned, whoever you are a Nigerian. I love you. I trust you until you prove to me, otherwise. So it is up to the Nigerians, to either accept the way I accept Nigeria, whichever way it is today. If it is one or if it is not one, but we are still Nigerians. To me, it is Nigeria that I hope I will be until I die. If after I've died and other people said that is not they don't want Nigeria at all, then of course it is up to them.
But it is important for the different parts to feel a sense of inclusion, because one of the things you tried to do in 1966 and 67 was to bring back everybody, and at the end of the war, you said there was no victor, no vanquished. In other words, that everybody had an equal stake in this country. So that sense of inclusion informed the way that you tried to run this country. And I wonder whether you think that that is an essential part, that inclusion, sense of inclusion is an essential part of trying to make people feel that they are part of a united Nigeria.
Well, that is why, honestly, my belief, belief and trust in democracy is sincere, and that is what I have been trying to do. Well, as I've said, when I grew up, and when I came and Nigerian in a crisis came in, I said, I want to return. I hope the few loyal ones of us can return the government to the status quo. That is not to the military, but to back to democracy. And when the July thing happened, yes, terrible thing happened. I certainly do not accord that. But one try to see if one can save the situation. And of course, when the bad thing really happened, all that now remains is whatever it is that when we'll try to continue and then try to put it right. And that is what one tried to do. And this is the reason why all the government that come, I do not involve myself in governance, but I at least advise people views. Express left, right, and center. We try to go almost to the precipice, but somehow the goodness of Nigerians, they will come back. and continue to try to find the best way of living.
Right.
And so this is the way I hope one day we'll be able to have the perfect system that satisfies everyone.
And General, we're almost at the end of this very interesting conversation. You've spoken about a lot of things, but let's speak finally about yourself. How would you like to be remembered?
Well, I want to be remembered as someone who loved his country, Nigeria, who loved Nigerians, and who pray if I cannot fight it, at least pray for Nigeria to continue to be a country that all of us would love. I know it is impossible for every country to be absolutely perfect. Today I heard that from Nigeria's Trump says that Nigeria might be one of those countries that they are going to deny visa. So it meant I cannot go to America anymore. Well, it meant that I should try to make my country better than America so that I can stay in Nigeria.
On that note, I want to thank you very much indeed. General Yakubu Gowon, former head of state, thank you ever so much. And to you, our audience, have been speaking to the former Nigerian head of state, General Yakubu Gowon, who led this country during its most turbulent and arguably its most prosperous time. I'm Charles Anyegolu in Abuja. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
What a fantastic, insightful, deep interview, thought-provoking as well, conducted by Charles Anyegolu, who is now joining us live from our studio in Abuja. Charles, congratulations on that fantastic interview. It gave us a lot to ponder about, and I know we all have a few questions. I'll just kick it off and say, the Aburi Accord, I know a lot of people were waiting to hear his thoughts on that. Were you satisfied with how he responded to that question?
Well, good to see you, Vimbai, and thanks very much indeed for having me on your program. I mean, all of you. But yes, it was, that was a really very, brilliant interview, I thought, not from my point of view of asking him the questions, but the fact that he was very forthcoming. I mean, he wasn't actually scheduled to do the interview on that day, but we kind of doorstepped him, and he then very kindly agreed to sit down with us, and we're very grateful for that. But yes, you brought up the issue of Aburi. That's a very controversial topic, and I think the jury will probably be out until somebody writes a seminal book that really assesses what both sides did, and if there's any documentation and so on, brings that to the fore. But as far as he was concerned, his understanding of what happened is completely different from what people in the southeast, and certainly the people who worked with Ojukwu, the way they, the former Biafran leader, the way they saw it, are completely different. So yes, I think the jury will still be out on that nettlesome question of Aburi.
Well, that was a fantastic interview, Charles. It was really fantastic to be able to see you in your element outside of the studio, but still being able to hold down such an insightful interview. First and foremost, I couldn't believe we were looking at a man who was 90 years old. I have to say he looks fantastic for his age. And then just to ask you personally, was there a point in the interview that you were completely taken aback by any of his responses? Was there something that perhaps you had your own preconceived notions about, but then sitting in his presence, you left the conversation feeling completely different? What was a standout moment for you?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and good to see you, Femi. I think that there was a point where the bit where he talked about the coup, and what happened in, I think 2 points actually, two sort of segments of the chat. When he talked about what happened in 1966, and then when he talked about the coup that removed him from office in 1975, I think he was very sort of defensive at some points, and he made very sort of strenuous efforts to exonerate himself from liability in many ways, and it is to some extent a natural response. But those were the things that actually stood out for me. He talked about the coup in 1966, both coups, and he wasn't in any way directly involved, which is contrary to what sort of public opinion appeared to be, and the fact that all the sort of junior officers rallied around him and decided that he was going to be the head of state, and the stories differ, of course, as to how he came to be the head of state. But also the other very sort of interesting moment was when he was pushed out of office, and how he kind of came to learn about it at the OAU summit in Uganda. You hear about these things and you read about these things, but it's actually really quite, amazing when you sit down with the man who was at the center of those developments and actually hear him put it across. So it was very interesting. Those were the moments that I think stood out for me. And by the way, I've got Mr. Rufai sitting next.
Good to see you.
My old friend Rufai.
Good to see you.
He came into Abuja and he didn't tell me he was coming in.
I'm sorry. I was sneaking to Abuja every now and then. But I must say, it is indeed a very fantastic interview. Brilliant, I must say, with the questions you did ask, and brilliance with the way you pushed back and put the facts in. It's a class work you have done. Stuff for journalism schools, should be able to, watch and just learn at your feet or your format. But
so guys, we all know that General Babangida came out to talk about the coup that happened. That coup wasn't an Igbo coup. It was meant to install a Yoruba leader. That's to tell you the kind of mindset the Igbos have. The Igbos have always been in the forefront of making Nigeria a great nation, but guess what? They suffer. The thing boomerangs against them. And we don't know why. Because we are being told that power was handed to the North. And the North feel that the Igbo man is so domineering. They don't want to give Igbos chance. Now, look at what is happening in Nigeria now. The Igbos are not in politics. Those of them in politics are not given juicy positions. We were thinking it's the agenda of the North. But what's happening even with the Southern president is an agenda of Nigeria. Like Showore will tell you. Now, a typical Igbo man will travel the whole Nigeria, build houses, even when they say the North doesn't like an Igbo man. They will go there, establish businesses, build houses, give birth to children. Even after Abiola's period, when there was this crisis in the North, many people lost their lives, lost their wealth and all that. They ran down to the Southeast unprepared, and there was a lot of commotion. But still, Igbos are returned to the North, building businesses, building houses, marrying and taking their wives to the North, giving birth to children, establishing them there, and a whole lot. But still, an Igbo man is not welcome in Nigeria. When you look at the presidential candidates, which of them actually gives hope for a better Nigeria? Is the Igbo man in it? That's Peter Obi. He is an Igbo man who has shown leadership even from the time he was the governor of Anambra State. He has been busy, carrying the northerners in the state along. Possibly he never knew that a day will come like this, but he was carrying everybody along, trying to build a better Nigeria. But at the end of the day, it will boomerang. It will go the other way. Boomerang, not because an Igbo man is at fault, but because the structure has been set that never you allow an Igbo man. I believe if Peter Obi does not win the forthcoming election, it's going to give rise to a whole lot of crisis. I'm telling you. Because you cannot allow presidency to come to the South. It was a Yoruba man, and they went to the North and returned to the South again. It's a Yoruba man. Now, are we not human beings? We are human beings now. You don't expect peace when you are stepping on someone's head. You don't. That's why Nnamdi Kanu's agitation. Now people are realizing that Nnamdi Kanu was really seeing reality. People call him prophet. People say, even those who are not Igbos, because he refused the exploitation of what belongs to the Igbo. You cannot be taken from us and deny us politics, deny us benefit, deny us federal government presence. You just take from us. Even after the war, nothing has been done, no compensation, no peacemaking, nothing. And you just want a people to just accept it like When you look at all these things, see, there's a lot to be done in fixing Nigeria. And we have leaderships that come in, they don't care. When I say they don't care. See, when Buhari came in, it was all about, him and the Northerners. Now, Buhari even tried his best. He tried his best by carrying some Yorubas along. Now, Tinubu has come in, it's just about the Yorubas. He still carried some Northerners. How many Igbos are there working with Tinubu? What are the positions they are holding? They want to keep suppressing. You think that the southern governors coming up is going to carry the whole south along? No, Tinubu came and said, Emilokon is our turn. And that's exactly what he's doing. It's the turn of the Yorubas, not the turn of the Igbos, not the turn of the South. The South is the one providing the revenue Nigeria is depending on. But go and check it out. Tinubu is building trillion naira road or in Lagos State, but no project in the South. No project is what is it called? State of emergency in Rivers State. Bayelsa State, I don't know if they have anything benefiting from the Tinubu's government, provided the governor is a PDP member. It's nothing. You can see how bad these people can be. It's all about them. It's just all about them. And that is why when people are saying, Tinubu must come back to I just keep asking them, what's the benefit of Tinubu coming out? What's the benefit of Tinubu coming back again as a president? He cannot work for this. If another man goes there, he will work for the North. Buhari worked for his people. Tinubu is working only for Yorubas, abandoning the entire South. In short, the Igbos will never end telling stories about Nigeria, what they've gone through. Now, Nnamdi Kanu is being prosecuted for terrorism. Look at the terrorists. After buying people, they will come out and make boasts that they buy them. What will happen? They will put their faces on the camera. The police doesn't know their address. Let an Igbo man do it. The Igbo man who said he's going to call IPOB members to come help him protect his properties in Lagos. Was he not locked up? For how long? He was in jail, languishing. His family was there, his businesses were there, everything was there. But the Fulanis are coming out on the social media, making videos on how they are the ones that came to Benue and caused that havoc they caused there. So a whole lot is happening in this country, and that is why we all must stand up to say enough is enough. Gowon, instead of Gowon now to come out and acknowledge his mistakes and admit to them, and say what's the way forward before he dies, that he wants to make peace, beg the Igbos. But he's beating about the bush. He's beating about the bush that the war wasn't meant to hit for the sake of hitting Igbos. Anyway, guys, I don't know what you make of this. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell. Please give this video a like so that YouTube can recommend it to others, and drop your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you.